If you clicked on this video, I wonder if you're struggling with an uncertain period of your life. Maybe you're dealing with a transition, a new job, or you're just got out of a job or a relationship, and you're not really sure what's going to happen next, and your anxious brain's predictions are usually pretty negative. If so, this video is for you because as a therapist, I'm going to be talking about the different strategies that I use with my patients to help them deal with these uncertain periods of their lives and feel a little bit better at tolerating uncertainty. So everyone goes through periods of uncertainty from time to time. Like for me right now, I'm about to finish my postdoctoral fellowship, and I'm not really sure what's going to happen next. I've applied a couple of jobs, I'm moving back to Toronto, but I don't really know what's going to happen. And honestly, I feel a little bit nervous as to whether I'm going to get a job, whether I'm going to be able to land on my feet. And so this is a period of uncertainty for me too. And although uncertainty is a fact of life, for some people, when they're particularly sensitive to uncertainty or they feel like there's almost like an allergy of uncertainty, this can contribute to significant anxiety. And in fact, intolerance to uncertainty is a core construct in generalized anxiety disorder. So one of the things that we have to do is to support and bolster our resilience to uncertainty and feel a little bit more capable to deal with life's uncertainty and stress. So now let's talk a little bit about some of the evidence-based strategies that I use with patients to really support them in developing a resilience to uncertainty and feel a lot more confident in their ability to tackle life stress. And the first one is something we call the behavioral experiment. So the fundamental idea behind the behavioral experiment, which is one of my favorite cognitive behavioral therapy skills, is that we are constantly making predictions about everyday life, usually in an anxious way, usually in a negative way. So for example, I might make predictions like, if I were to talk to that person, they're not gonna really enjoy talking to me. They're gonna think I'm boring. If I were to try out a new restaurant, I'm not gonna like it and I'll have wasted my money. If I were to do X, Y, or Z, all of those things are gonna have negative outcomes. But the thing is, we don't actually know whether or not that is true. However, even though we don't know what's gonna happen, we basically implicitly assume that our anxious brain is right, that that is gonna happen, that the person is not gonna really enjoy talking to me, that I won't enjoy that food from the new restaurant. So we assume that, we close up our worlds, we stop doing anything that seems foreign or unfamiliar or uncertain because we worry about the negative consequences. And the great thing about the behavioral experiment is that actually it's kind of a win-win. Either one, you actually figure out that uncertainty doesn't always mean it's a negative thing and things actually can turn out quite positive. Maybe you actually really enjoy that new restaurant or that person that you talk to really seemed quite engaged with you. Or number two, on the second door, that even if it was a terrible outcome, that you survived and you can handle crappy things that happen in your life. So there are really only two outcomes. One, that you realize that uncertainty doesn't always mean it's something bad, and uncertainty can actually be kind of exciting and can lead to positive outcomes. Or two, you showcase that you can survive and you can handle negative outcomes. Or, behind door number three, you're dead, so it doesn't really matter anyway. But that's unlikely to happen. And oftentimes, we often think about outcomes really just in the short term, like after this event happened, was it positive or negative? But in reality, one thing that I've come to learn is that whether something is good or bad really kind of changes over time. So I'll tell you a quick story about a farmer who was working on his crops, and one day his horse ran away, and the neighbors were like, "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, that's terrible." And all the farmer said in response was, "We'll see." And then the next day, the horse came back and actually brought three wild horses with him. And the neighbors were like, "Oh my gosh, that's incredible. Like, that's such good news." And the farmer only replied, "We'll see." And then the day after that, his son was working on the field as well, and one of the horses escaped and actually bumped into his son, crashed into him, and he broke his leg. And the neighbors were like, "Oh my gosh, that is horrible. I'm so sorry to hear that about your son." And the farmer replied, "We'll see." And then finally, the fourth day, the military came and were conscripting young men to come join the war. And as a result of his son's broken leg, the farmer's son didn't have to go to war. And the neighbors are like, "Wow, that's such a lucky thing that happened." And the farmer replied, "We'll see." So one of the things that I take away from this story is that good and bad and the way that we evaluate something can change over the time horizon of which we judge it. Like for example, when I was 18 and I was applying to college, psychology wasn't actually my first choice. It was actually business because at the time I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I figured I might as well just choose the thing that would most likely make me some amount of money. So when I got into psychology and not business, I was understandably pretty sad and upset. But now 10, 12 years later, I'm actually like super glad that I ended up in psychology because it's something that gives me a lot of meaning and a lot of purpose and allows me to make this particular video. And for me, that bad evaluation that happened when I was 18 has sort of shifted over time, and now I feel like it's actually sort of a wonderful thing that I ended up in psychology. So I also encourage you to think about past experiences where at the time you kind of thought it was kind of a bad thing. It was unfortunate. Maybe you didn't get into the college that you wanted or job that you wanted, but maybe down the road it ended up being a really amazing choice because you ended up meeting your partner or you ended up with this really cool opportunity as a result of working with someone that you otherwise wouldn't have if you didn't end up in that position in the first place. So, in a lot of ways, uncertainty can be really scary because it's such a ambiguous and vague and nebulous thing. We don't really have any concrete ideas as to what's happening. And one way to add transparency and clarity to our fears is through worry journaling. So, really literally writing down what are some of your fears, what are some of your thoughts and feelings associated with the future or something that you're dealing with that has a lot of uncertainty tied with it. So, maybe even taking 10 minutes in the evening, writing down on a piece of paper or on a Word document all your thoughts and feelings associated with that because of a couple of things. So one reason this can be super helpful is that it brings clarity to the experience. So instead of like a vague, nebulous fear, you're actually jotting down, hey, this is why I'm pretty nervous about this thing. And number two, it kind of acts like a little bit of an exposure practice where you're sitting with the distress, sitting with the catastrophic fears, and over time, that's going to reduce your anxiety. So alongside that, one thing you can do is really sit with the feelings of uncertainty, physical sensations of anxiety associated with uncertainty that, as you're maybe thinking about that thing right now that's causing you distress, to really determine how it feels. Like, do you feel that your hands are clamming up? Does it feel like your chest is kind of beating or your shoulders are tense? What does that feel like? And see if you can soften your attitudes towards the experience itself to really kind of say, hey, like, this is my experience. It doesn't feel super comfortable. And, I don't have to run away from it. I can kind of just allow it to be there, be curious about the experience. And you might even notice as you're doing that, there's maybe a little bit of a softening as you're kind of approaching this experience with curiosity and through the beginner's mind. So, from a sort of problem solving perspective, one of the things that my supervisor in my early days said that one thing that can be really helpful to developing a resilience to uncertainty is to get good at a couple of things. Like, if we're feeling a little bit more competent in our daily lives, then naturally we're going to feel more competent in dealing with stressors or unknowns or uncertainties. So, one thing that you can do is to build a little bit of mastery in your daily life. And this can come in a variety of shapes and forms. Like, for example, it might be learning a new language and spending a few minutes doing that, taking a course on something that you really want to learn a bit more about, which might upskill you and help you get into another job. So anything that helps develop you and allows you to put some eggs in different baskets of your sort of overall bucket of confidence, all of those things will be super helpful for you to feel just more at ease and more resilient to when life hands you out stressors and lemons. Ultimately, I want this video to help shift your relationship even a little bit with uncertainty itself, that uncertainty doesn't mean dangerous or threatening, that it can mean novel and exciting, and that we don't know what's going to happen. So there's kind of like a world of possibility, and oftentimes our brain goes towards the many different possibilities and chooses the most anxious and dangerous and scary one. But in reality, there's a number of different possibilities, many much more positive. And as you can engage in this behavioral experiment, in this sort of shifting the way that we think about uncertainty, we begin to change our relationship with uncertainty itself. Ultimately, life can be uncertain and hard, and that can be really scary. I totally get that. And I hope some of these strategies were helpful for you to feel a little bit more confident or start developing some more resilience to uncertainty. And if it's helpful at all, remember that the hero's journey, it requires obstacles and scary things along the way so that it really makes it worthwhile when you finish your journey and end up returning home. I may just be a talking head on a screen, but I really believe in you, and I think you got this. Take care for now.